So, second movie in a row, and we're going to be talking about possession. Welcome back to Alyssa's Movie Takes. Today I'm going to be looking at the movie Soul. Soul is directed by Pete Docter, who is now running Pixar, and it stars Jamie Foxx as Joe Gardner and Tina Fey as Soul 22. Pete Docter is famous for such movies as Up and Inside Out. Soul is probably closest in style to Inside Out in that you have various scenes that you're jumping around in that are somewhat metaphysical, somewhat psychological, and it has that same sort of two characters going on an adventure through different realms than we would be used to. The story follows Joe Gardner, played by Jamie Foxx, who is a middle school band teacher and wannabe jazz musician. He gets the biggest gig of his life, and then immediately, as he's walking down the street excited about it, falls into a manhole and dies. Or at least goes unconscious so that his soul leaves his body. And he ends up on this big escalator toward what they call the Great Beyond, but he doesn't want to be dead. So he jumps out of line, and as he falls down, he falls through these different dimensions to a new place called the Great Before, where there are preborn souls, newly born souls who are about to get their personalities and then go to Earth. Things happen. He accidentally becomes mentor to this soul 22, played by Tina Fey, who doesn't want to go to Earth, who hasn't wanted to go to Earth for centuries and has gone through mentor after mentor after mentor, including Mother Teresa and Gandhi and Abraham Lincoln. And each one of them tries to convince her that she has a purpose or a spark, and she just isn't buying it. And they end up back on Earth. Tina Fey possesses the body of Joe Gardner, and Joe Gardner possesses the body of a cat. And so they have their kind of New York City adventure while in each other's body, learning to walk in each other's shoes. And, eventually whatever happens, and we won't put spoilers here, but they go on an adventure in these different bodies. I would say that the theme of the movie is learn to appreciate the little things of life, and that's what makes life worth living. It's not really well told. It doesn't really come across that well. It doesn't have the same sort of joy and wonder that you would find in a movie like Inside Out. I just thought it was meh. The best parts of it are the animation of music and how music can be a spiritual experience. When Joe Gardner goes into what they call the zone, when he's playing with his icon, Dorothea, it is amazing what they do with the colors. It's amazing what they do with the surroundings. It's amazing how you feel like you're inside his head. That part of it was excellent. Now I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to say the rest of this review is probably targeted toward Christian parents who are trying to decide whether or not to let their kids watch this. If you are a non-Christian viewer, you are welcome to watch. I would just add this little caveat of saying that what I'm going to talk about is being careful about what we open ourselves up to. And I say that is probably true too for you. You may believe more in the Eastern mysticism stuff that they put in this movie. That's your right. But I would still caution you, be careful of what you're opening yourself up to. As I move this review toward Christian parents, I would say definitely be careful about what you're opening your kids up to and yourself up to as well. This is based on the worldview as a Christian who believes that there are really only two sides to things. There's God's side and there's Satan's side. And God lays out his side of the spiritual realm as him, God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, angels, and prayer warriors, us who have a participation in what goes on around us in the spiritual realm. And then on Satan's side, you have Satan, who was at one point one of the major leaders in heaven. He rebelled and took a third of those angels with him, who are now evil and demonic. It says that they fell from heaven like lightning. Okay, so that's kind of the broad landscape of the spiritual realm. And with that belief that there are only two sides, as parents, we need to be extremely cautious that we are not opening our kids up to the demonic side. I have learned discernment. I do believe that it is a gift, but I can recognize something quickly, and it kind of almost comes as jazz hands, like, that's demonic. Be careful. This movie is about possession. This movie is about how meditation can open up your soul to these other realms. This movie is about that there's a before, there's a sort of a vague after. These are not things that we believe. And if it's not coming from God, then it's probably coming from Satan. And this is where I really started to feel it. Now there's these characters called Jerrys. Everybody's named Jerry, and they come in The Great Before. And they're these two-dimensional, sort of vague spiritual beings that have big circles for eyes. And what that reminded me of is the movie Coraline, which is a freaky movie. That movie scares me. Of when the mother character in this other realm that Coraline finds herself in stops becoming this nice, sweet person that she can trust and starts to become controlling and evil. And her eyes become these dark buttons and freaky as all get out. Those characters, those Jerry characters, reminded me of that mother when it was like the evil started to come through. There was something sinister that I felt like it was underneath the surface. And maybe people watching are like, oh, there wasn't anything sinister. But I felt it in my spirit. Those eyes just freaked me out, those big voids. And there was just a sense in The Great Before. I thought, oh, this is such a non-happy place. It's sort of vaguely happy. And that has a sense of a smooth veneer, but rotten underneath the surface. All right, so there was that part. Then possession. I do believe that you should not be opening yourself up to the idea of possession as a good thing, or you can learn through possession. You can learn to appreciate life through possession, through walking in another person's shoes. I don't think it was right in Wonder Woman 1984, which I just reviewed, and I don't think it's right here, especially for kids. Now, a lot of people are probably going to go, well, it's harmless. You know, you're training your mind to focus on things, and maybe you can get in the zone. What's our zone? Our zone as Christians is worship, right? We do want to connect with something higher than ourselves. We do want to find ourselves in that state where we're just so appreciative of the wonder and beauty of the world, but not for the sake of the wonder and beauty of the world, for the sake of the wonder and beauty of the Creator who made it. Okay? I want you guys to have discernment. I believe that I have been given that gift, that I have developed it over time. And having discernment comes from having an understanding of the scriptures, of what God warns us about in terms of messing with demons, messing with idols, messing with other religions. Number 1 commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. Number 2 is you shall not make idols. So why? Because idols are tied to the demonic. We learned that in scripture. If you are struggling in this age where there's so much media and so much of it is not what you believe, then I would encourage you to memorize this verse, which is Colossians 2:8. Okay. I'm getting a little scriptural because my spirit really balked at this movie, because I know the dangers of opening yourself up to stuff that is not coming from God, but it's coming from Satan's side. And it might look peachy and keen, but there is a price to pay. Okay. Underneath that smooth veneer is going to be something ugly, and that something ugly can stick with you for a long time. So this is the verse. It's Colossians 2:8. See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the basic principles of this dark world, rather than on Christ. And ultimately, it's those philosophies that we have to be careful. Those philosophies that turn into idolatry, that pull us away from God and pull us away from the beauty of creation. Read if you want to have an alternative to what this kind of bland, blah, meh version of the afterlife. I would say Heaven is for Real. There's a kid's book and there's also an adult book, but it's pretty easy to read for both of them, but they did make a kid's version of it. This is Colton, who went to heaven and who had a vision of heaven and the beauty of it and the closeness of Christ and Jesus and the love that he felt there and the closeness and the hominess that he felt versus this rather like, hey, you can have a personality or you can get hit by a giant bug zapper. The other person I would recommend watching is a testimony by Dean Braxton. You can find that on YouTube. I will also link it to it below. He also died for over 24 hours and had an amazing, extensive visit to heaven. There are many stories like this. We want something more than what this movie gives us, okay? And don't settle for something meh when God is giving us something like amazing to look forward to. I don't envy parents who have to navigate this hard road of what to show your children and when. There is a little bit of a when to show your kids. Maybe your kids are 12 or 13 and you want to teach them about what the world says versus what God says. And this might be a good discussion starter for that. give them the better alternative. That's all I'm saying. And as far as Soul goes, I don't know why Pete Docter made this movie. He's a Christian. There's nothing Christian about this movie. There's a little tiny little bit of feel goodness about it, but for the most part, I just thought the animation is incredible, but the story is like meh and weird and trippy. Honestly, I felt it was kind of trippy. That's my take. Let me know in the comments below. I said it was going to be controversial, but I thought I was going to do something different. No, I did Soul. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.